One thing about me, I'm going to objectify men, specifically fictional men. Hi, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to focus on one of my favorite subjects, which happens to be my book boyfriends list. Now, I have a running changing list for both dark romance book boyfriends and fantasy book boyfriends because you simply can't compare them. They're different, there's different categories. But today we will be focusing on my top 15 currently dark romance book boyfriends. When it comes to dark romance book boyfriends, I feel like I have two types that I usually go for. One is the funny, sarcastic, obsessive, narcissistic psychopath. My second is moody, broody, mean, but yearns and is down bad for his woman and only his woman. So starting off at 15, we have Kyle Hunter from the Throne duet by Rena Kent. Have I read this duet? No. But do I know that I'm going to be obsessed with Kyle? Yes. You get glimpses of him throughout the Renaverse, and I'm currently reading it from chronological order. I finished the Royal Elite series. I forget what the other two duets are, but the next duet that I'm to read chronologically is the Throne duet, which is Kyle and Rye's book. If you have been following me for a while, specifically on Book Talk, you would know that the Legacy of God series is my God tier series. And Kyle is mentioned briefly in specifically God of Ruin and God of Fury's books because he is Mia, Maya, and Nikolai's father. He is low-key a psychopath, but in like the best way ever. He does it because he's a dad and he's protective. At number 14, this is a new addition to my book boyfriends list because I had just finished his book like a month ago, and that is going to be Achilles Duval from Loving the Tormentor by Lola King. I devoured this man's book. He was kind of the unlikable, unfeeling, questionable, mysterious MMC, and so I'm not surprised that I immediately fell for him once I got into his book. Imagine taking Landon King and his possessiveness and his obsession with the FMC, combining it with his passion for music, mesh it together, and times it by 1,000. That's Achilles Duval. He meets Nyx, who is a super fan of his because he is a violin music prodigy. He written a symphony when he was like 12 or 13 or something crazy, and people have been waiting for him to write a symphony because it's been years and he's been radio silent. Something happens to where Nyx actually inspires him to write a symphony out of nowhere. It's one of his best work yet, thus becoming his obsession, aka his muse. This book was so freaking good. It was funny, the yearning, but also broke my heart at the same time. At number 13, we have our funny king, Ronan Astor. He is a part of the Royal Elite series, and his book is specifically Vicious Prince. I will say, when I was reading the series, he was kind of annoying because he's always that side character that kind of breaks up the tension. He's funny, flirty, he's always off doing his own thing. He's always partying, hooking up with all these girls, yada yada yada. Get into his book and find out that he actually has a very traumatized, dark upbringing. And I typically love the tortured souls. And it's always the funny ones that have such a horrible backstory. So we follow him as he goes into some adult clubs. I don't know what all I can say on here. Adult clubs where he meets the FMC Teal Van Doren, who I'm obsessed with, and something happens and they become obsessed with each other, and it is everything. He speaks to her in French. If you love Beast Boy and Raven from Teen Titans, you're gonna love Ronan and Teal. At number 12, we have Z. Benheim from Heartless Beloved, which is another Lola King book. Something about the mean, broody, quiet, mysterious MMC who only has eyes for one girl. And this happens to be a grumpy sunshine, which typically I don't love that trope, but I ate it up with this book. Z is so mean, but broody, and everyone thinks he's so hot and scary, and he's so closed off, and all he wants to do is protect his friends because he's a part of a gang. He's also rivals with another gang that's in the series, and he meets up with a girl who's on the rich side of town. Automatically his guard is up because she obviously doesn't have real feelings or anything going on, but their love story is very sweet, and his nickname for her is so freaking cute. He literally calls her Cupcake because she's so sweet. At number 11, we have Deverick Bramwell from Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. If you are a Harry Potter fan or grew up loving Harry Potter and you kind of had a crush on Snape, this book validates it because he gives hot Snape vibes. We follow our FMC whose mother was killed mysteriously by these parasites, and then her case randomly got swept under the rug, which is super weird. She attends a university, Drcadia I believe is what it's called, and she attends this professor's lecture who specifically studies those parasites, that professor being Deverick Bramwell. This is dark academia, kind of dark romance, age gap, professor-student, but the yearning, the poetry that this man would say. Also, there is a scene where she's using her phone and she's not supposed to, doing something she's not supposed to, and he confiscates said phone, opens it up and sees something and has fun. And I'll leave it at that. At number 10, this one might be a controversial one because you either love him or hate him. It is Malachi Vise from Little Stranger, Little Liar, the duet by Lee Rivers, my queen. I had so much FOMO whenever Little Stranger first came out. Everybody was freaking out. The audiobook was really good. So naturally I had FOMO and I had to jump on the bandwagon, and I'm so glad that I did. Malachi Vise was my first mute MMC, and I found that was very intriguing to me, and that was a very small detail of an MMC that I was into, and I feel like we should explore more MMCs like that. It's also my first pierced MMC. Malachi is in love with Olivia, and they've grown up together. They were in the foster system. Their family brought them together, thus making them foster siblings, and they fall in love, which is super taboo. They're in a very wealthy family. There's pressure on both of them to be a certain way, specifically more towards Olivia, whereas Malachi is very dark, broody, breaks the rules, bad boy. Something happens and it ends up putting him in jail for 8 years, and Olivia doesn't speak to him at all in that time that he's in prison, thus making him go into a rage. He's out of prison, and that's where the story really takes off. Again, dark romance. This is probably one of the darker ones on my list, so obviously read your trigger warnings if you need them. At number 9, we have another Silent King, Silas Hawthorne from The Oaths We Burn, which is a part of the Hollow Boy series by Monty J. If you haven't read Monty J, what are you doing? Monty J's writing is so beautiful. Monty is currently writing the second book of the second generation that is still a part of the world of the Hollow Boy series. When I tell you that reading the first book, I got the same high that I felt reading the Legacy of God series, I'm not kidding. The way that Monty writes their books is so beautiful and poetic and atmospheric. The Oaths We Burn, this is the last book in the series. It's a 5-book series, and essentially we're following a murder mystery of Silas's girlfriend. We're trying to figure out who did it, why, go back and forth between past and present, obviously focusing on each couple throughout the series. We finally get to the last book, and Monty really saved the best for last. Silas really caught me off guard, but also he's another pierced MMC that I was quite taken aback. Mouth on this man, the heart on this man, the yearning of this man. Very underrated, and he deserves way more hype. At number 8, we have another Monty J MMC, and that is Mr. Jude Sinclair from Wrath of an Exile. He is the first book of the second generation series that Monty has written, and I ate this book up. Dare I say it's almost as good as the original Hollow Boy series. In this book, it is kind of a Romeo and Juliet retelling where we focus on Jude and Seraphina. They come from rival families, which you find out where the rivalry comes from if you read the Hollow Boy series. We follow them and follow their kind of situationship that leads into romance, and the romance is so good. He is a poet. He is a closeted poet, really. He hides all of his work, but all of the words that he writes for her and for him and their love is so beautifully done. And Seraphina's a baddie. At number 7, another new addition to my list, we have Ren Hunter from Loving the Reaper by Lola King. This is the second book in the Silver Falls University trilogy, and I knew I was gonna love him. From book 1, his little cameos, I was eating it up. This is best friends to lovers, except he's been in love with her since the moment he met her, and she's reluctantly avoided feelings for him the entirety of their friendship. And it comes off as a pretty golden boy, super good at sports, very popular, all of the girls want him, but everyone in the planet knows that he's waiting for Peach. And then finally Peach gives in, and his obsessive, possessive, crazy, psycho personality comes out. And you also get more into a secret society that's introduced in the series. You get more into it with his book, I feel. And you find out why it's called Tormenting the Reaper. Number 6, we have another very underrated MMC. We have Eli King. Eli is in God of War by Miss Rena Kent. This is the 6th and last book in the Legacy of God series, and she really did save the best for last. In the Legacy of God series, we follow 6 couples, the King family, essentially, and then we follow the Heathens, a rival college kind of fraternity, I think is technically what they are. And they're all psychotic men, but they're psychotic men that yearn for their women. Toucher and die energy. As we're following the entirety of the Legacy of God series, we lead up to Eli and Ava. And throughout the entire series, they hate each other. They completely avoid each other. And Eli is very much a psychopath, kind of giving antisocial personality disorder. He is the heir to the King Empire, which is a billionaire family. And he very much acts like a CEO. He's very cold, motionless, but a psycho and a manipulator. He aggravates Ava. Timeline is kind of what threw people off because it's a few years after the Legacy of God series. So all of the couples are out of college, you know, married with kids, moving on with their lives. And we get to Ava. And Ava is kind of in her party girl era because she's trying to figure out what to do with her life now. Her friends have all moved on, they're in relationships, yada, yada, yada. And she actually is going through kind of a downward spiral, which ultimately leads her getting into an accident, which puts her in a coma. Ava wakes up from this coma to find out that for the last 2 years, she's been married to none other than Eli King. The mouth and the dedication, the my wife moments from Eli King, and watching the love and care that Eli has towards Ava was so good and was such a good conclusion to the Legacy of God series. Please, please, please pick it up. It is so good and it's so worth reading. My top 5 list, I feel like stays very consistent. These are the numbers that will stay pretty consistent. I made one edit recently because of a book that I had just finished. That's really the only change that I've made pretty much since I've started reading dark romance. At number 5, another Rena man, we have Mr. Jeremy Volkov. He is the MMC of God of Wrath, which is the 3rd book in the Legacy of God series. He was my introduction into mafia men. He is the heir to the Russian and Italian mafia, but like that's very secondary in this book. If you read like his parents' books, which I still haven't read those yet, it dives more into like the mafia world, but he was my introduction to it. Like most mafia men, he is very cold, he is very heartless, he has no feelings, but he gets so bent out of shape over one girl in particular, Miss Cecily. And Cecily is one of my favorite FMCs in Rena Ken's universe. She's so like me, and I feel like so relatable. She reads manhwas and mangas, specifically MM. She loves to eat waffles. She likes to wear sarcastic t-shirts, graphic tees. She dyes her hair silver because she wants to look like anime characters. Like, she's so relatable and so fun. She was so nonchalant about Jeremy being obsessed with her, and I was eating it up. He got so bent out of shape over a text that she sent him of a sparkly heart emoji. At number 4, another new addition to my list, we have Mr. Jude Callahan from Sweet Venom, another Rena man. Surprise, surprise. And Jude really came through, and he almost topped my number 3 in my list. He is the 2nd book in the Vipers trilogy, I believe is what it's called, which is a dark hockey romance. He really took me by surprise. And the way that Violet was so hard on herself and never felt worthy or loved, and the way that Jude came in and completely showed her that she is worth it and she is loved was just, it was such a beautiful story. Also, he's 6'5", and the mouth on this man, he rides a motorcycle. He's 6'5", down bad for his girl, super, super flirty. and I ate him up. All right, my number 3, my number 1 Rena man, Mr. Landon King. He is from God of Ruin. This man will not budge, I fear, from my number 3 list, and I don't see them ever changing because they haven't since the beginning of time. Landon was one of those characters that he was so annoying in all of the other books. He was a narcissist and a manipulator, and he was chaotic and a psycho. And then I read the first chapter of God of Ruin, and I immediately was like, oh, so I'm a Landon girl. He is a art prodigy. His mom is an art prodigy, and so are his siblings, his twin brother and his sister. They all beautiful, amazing artists. And he's a sculptor. And again, he's a narcissist, so he thinks only highly of himself. He's one of the most popular guys in school because, of course, he's a king. He catches the eye of none other than Mia Sokolov. If you read the Legacy of God series, it'll obviously make sense because all of these characters' storylines intertwine. But to give backstory, Mia hates Landon because Landon is always beating up her brother, or vice versa. And so she hates him, and he is obsessed with her. She becomes his muse. She's mute and speaks only sign language. He learns sign language in less than 24 hours. At number 2, my favorite pyromaniac, Mr. Rook Van Doren from The Truths We Burn in the Hollow Boys series by Monty J. This man was so funny and hot and flirty and chaotic. He's a biker, he's tatted, he is pierced, and he was such a fun character to follow throughout the series. He was the character that I was always like, where's Rook? I was blushing reading his book. I was blushing reading his character throughout the series. And in the second generation, Wrath of an Exile, he's the dad to one of the characters, and that's all I'll say. The way that Rook was such a tortured soul and had literal daddy issues, and he was so soft for Sage, and Sage was so cold-hearted and mean, but he could see right through her. And the way that they were two just wounded, tortured, broken pieces of a puzzle and just fit together was so beautiful. It's so good, you guys. They are my favorite couple in the series. Obsessed with them. 10 out of 10 recommend. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. Again, if you've been following me for a while, you will know who my number 1 book boyfriend is. I will pause for dramatic effect so you can guess. It is in fact Cade Mitchell from the Edge of Darkness trilogy by Lee Rivers. When I tell you that I thought Malachi Vise was the Lee Rivers man for me, and I was reminded by one of my favorite people on Book Talk, Joyce, that I needed to meet Cade Mitchell because I was going to be head over heels, she was correct, and I owe her my life now. In the Edge of Darkness trilogy, I will implore you to please read your trigger warnings specifically for this series because it is so dark and painful and sad and wonderful at the same time. There's so many emotions that you feel, but there's so much trauma that these characters go through. But it's so good. It's one of my, it is my favorite dark romance trilogy of all time. We follow Cade and Stacy, who are exes in the present time, but we go back to the past where they first meet, and they're friends to exes, and you find out why they're exes, and it just goes down from there. Cade Mitchell is the son of the infamous psychopath serial killer Tobias Mitchell, who's been in prison for 20 years for stalking his mom. Cade was such a fun MMC to be introduced to because he was the first MMC that I feel like really truly had antisocial personality disorder, but in the sense of he just fully did not understand emotions, and he tried his best to understand emotions, but also he knows who his father is, and he didn't want to become quote-unquote a psycho like his father. It was so great being in his head because you feel so bad for him because of all the pain and the yearning that he feels towards Stacy, and then everything that happens throughout the book, it's so painful. But the found family in this series is so good. Lee has confirmed that she will be writing other books, which are like spin-off series of the Edge of Darkness trilogy following other characters. We already have Psychotic Obsession, which is Tobias's book, and it's before shit hit the fan, so to speak. But we're also getting Base and Luciella's book. We're also getting a third generation, which, if you didn't know, Edge of Darkness trilogy and the Web of Silence duet, they're kind of interconnected. And there's going to be a second generation, or I guess third generation technically, book that Lee Rivers is writing. So that is my list. Again, I feel like I am pretty consistent when it comes to my dark romance book boyfriends. I have a very specific type of man that I fall for every single time. And I feel like my list doesn't change that often. It takes a lot, I feel like, to be added to my list. So yeah. I will do another video separate on my fantasy book boyfriends list, and I will also most likely do my favorite FMCs from dark romance and fantasy too, because I also have a running list of them as well. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know who your favorite book boyfriend is, whether or not it's dark romance or not, and I will see you on the next one.